Incredible guy.
You might be kind of fun to get to speak at some point. I know some of those winners are hesitant to come back to the club, but no, that's neat. Well, yeah, Austin, as those histories develop and are put to paper, just please make sure that I get to see those so we can tout our laurels on these interclubs. So I'll go ahead and get started. If everyone could please remember to stay muted. If you'd like to unmute yourself before talking, please do, and then mute yourself again once you're done. So we have some big news today. We have hired a new operations manager, Ms. Kelly Olis, who is on the phone. Kelly, if you could wave. Thank you very much, Ms. Kelly. She will start Monday, April 5th. And I was digging up some dirt on you this morning, Kelly, talking to Mr. Brad Boyd. And he was curious if you still had the recipe for the Conseco cocktail.
It would actually be called the Conseco Special, Brad. And I think I could probably round up some ingredients.
Thank you very much. So Kelly comes to us.
I can tell you what it is. It's a shot of triple sec, a shot of Christian Brothers brandy, a shot of amaretto, and top off with cranberry juice and orange juice. Still have the card, Kelly.
That sounds delicious. That sounds delicious. So Kelly, we're going to work on a downtown Indianapolis club cocktail. So that's your first major assignment. So no less than 500 words. No, I'm just kidding. Kelly, would you mind just introducing yourself a little bit? So you came to us from YMCA with time at Conner Prairie and time with Mr. Brad Boyd at Conseco, and with how event heavy this job is, for me, one of the events that really stood out is you and Brad facilitated the grand opening of Conseco Fieldhouse. So would you mind just taking 30 seconds introducing yourself?
Yeah, hello everyone. There's going to be a write-up about me in the newsletter as well, but this gentleman that I see on the screen, Brad, hello. Brad and I kind of go back a ways. I also have some other connections to Kiwanis. I was looking through some of my scrapbook materials, and evidently I received a scholarship from the Kiwanis of Kokomo before I went away to college. So I'm no stranger to member organizations, and really excited to join you all and serve Kiwanis and support you in your efforts to grow the club in downtown area.
All right, thanks so much, Kelly. And hearing how well you did on a shoestring budget at YMCA, I am thrilled to see how you'll work with our committees in the coming years. So thanks again for your time and commitment so far, and we're looking forward to having you. Thank you, Nancy, for all the work, and especially last week, thanks for summarizing the 30 pages of references into a very digestible 3-paragraph summary. So we need to get you on the external grant committee so you can summarize the 5,400 pages of grant requests. No, I'm just kidding, Nancy. Thanks so much again. And I'll have the case of dry white wine for you, dry red, when I get back from spring break. So thanks again for the dozens and dozens of hours there. So we are going to take off next week for spring break. With me being gone, I had a hard time asking anybody else to do something that I wasn't able to do myself. So we will reconvene April 15th for Jim Brainerd, Carmel mayor and environmental advocate. I mean, I think he's going to go down in history for the roundabout prince of the Midwest. So we are thrilled to have Mr. Brainerd April 15th. We have awarded and then Doug Bowles at April 29th. Jay Brill is really going to put the word out. If we joined the Augusta, Georgia club for the Masters, we're really going to tout this as an inter-club opportunity for other clubs around the country. So that please don't miss the April 29th Doug Bowles. presentation. Please invite any potential members, friends, neighbors, coworkers, etc., trying to drum up attendance there. We have awarded 2 $2,500 KIPS scholarships, Kiwanis Improvement Program at Southport High School, which annually recognizes 2 Southport seniors who have demonstrated great improvement and excellent attendance over the years. Our foundation funds the program along with Kiwanian Tom Dunham. Tom, thanks for everything you do, and you continue to inspire us. Our basketball committee put together a video that was sent out this week. We hope you watch and enjoy it. We want to thank David Wright for his leadership on this committee for the past 13 years. This was his last year as chair. If you had worked on the basketball committee in the past few years and would like to step up, we do need a formal chair heading into next year. So if you want to get involved in a very visible and meaningful way, the last year we had it in person, Mayor Hogsett was one of the key speakers. So it's a great way to touch a lot of local high schoolers and also get your face and name out into the community. You might consider giving to our club in lieu of paying for lunch. Any amount would be appreciated. The link is in the chat. So I will tend to donate basically what I would earn the time saved driving back and forth from 96th Street and Keystone to downtown. So please consider supporting our foundation. We have our candidates for the election. So Max Harper is going to join us as secretary. New directors are coming back as directors. Jackie Clancy, we're thrilled to have you back. Laura Holloway, welcome to the directors. And Chuck Cotterman and Wendy are coming back. And last but not least, if you haven't met Miss Trina Raudebush, you will. She is coming on as president-elect. So thanks, Trina, for stepping up, and you will follow Miss Carol as president-elect. We've got Ashley Ross here to speak today from the visually impaired preschool services about their 2021 $2,000 grant from our foundation. And speaking with Mr. Brad Boyd, it seems like VIPS has received a couple contributions from Kiwanis. So it's nice to be paired with a dynamic organization. If you wouldn't mind just giving a little bit of details about your organization.
Yeah, can everyone hear me okay? Perfect. So I'm Ashley Ross. I'm here in our VIPS Indianapolis office currently. And to give a little background on who VIPS is, Visually Impaired Preschool Services is what it stands for. And we provide education to babies and toddlers who are birth to 3 years old, who are blind or visually impaired, and then provide that support to their families. So we do this by having highly trained teachers and interventionists. They travel into the homes of children across the entire state, and we just have resumed in-person services for the past about year. We had been doing services through Zoom, which went pretty well. So we are going to integrate a hybrid model of that going forward, have some in person, some on Zoom. But these services are for the babies and toddlers who are visually impaired, and it provides resources, ideas, tools, whatever a family may need to make sure that that child that has significant vision loss is going to reach developmental milestones, so that when they enter preschool or kindergarten or whatever their next step is after VIPS, they're going to have those tools and the knowledge to be on track with their peers that do not have vision loss or have typical vision. And these teachers are helping these children compensate by helping them use other senses, and then sometimes using tools such as mobility devices like a white cane. We provide that early training as well. So what this grant will be paying for are play frames, which I will share my screen. And share. Okay. And can everyone see my screen? Oh, okay. So this is what a play frame is. It is PVC pipe that is connected with different connectors. And then there are elastic that hangs from the frame, and it has household items on it. So you can see here, there is a loofah, a metal whisk, and a silicone brush. You might be thinking, why in the world would you hang household items from some PVC pipe? Well, a lot of children's toys are made with plastic. And so if a child is only interacting with plastic, they're not going to learn how to differentiate different textures. So providing them with metal, and sometimes we hang like wooden spoons from them, or like the silicone brush, this is going to give them real life textures that they're going to encounter when they grow up, when they become adults. They're going to start being able to distinguish the difference. It also gets their fingers prepared and more sensitive to different textures, which for a person who is blind or visually impaired, their sense of touch is one of their most important senses because they cannot see. So it's teaching the children different textures. And then also for a child who has significant vision loss, when they're holding a toy in their hand and then they drop it, it's really hard for them to locate that toy later because it's either on a really cluttered carpet that has a different design. It might be a really thick carpet, whatever it may be, it's hard for them to reach out and find. Whereas if it's attached to this play frame, they can easily go back and reach for it. So the play frame can also teach reach, sit up or roll over, these different skills that a child who has typical vision, they learn it on their own. A child who is visually impaired, they need tools like this to motivate them to sit up, to motivate them to reach out to things. So the grant itself is going to help us pay for over 100 of these play frames, and these stay in the homes of the family. So we gift it to the family that they can use it however they see fit. They can change out the different items as the child's interests differ. Sometimes, as you can see in this other picture, we have one of our teachers who's with a child using it. Sometimes our teachers will use it to help with a story. If they're going to read a story, they'll attach items to this play frame that are in the story. So that provides the child with a visual and a textural component to something that they're hearing. So like I said, it's going to help us pay for over 100 of these, and that's going to include the hanging items, the duct tape to wrap them for extra safety, the elastic, all that stuff we have been able to pay for using the money you all have given us. So I just want to say thank you so much, and thank you for allowing me to share a little more about what we do.
Thanks, Ashley. That was a beautiful presentation, and it looks like the grant is going to be well spent. Growing up, one of my dear family friends from Kiwanis was Judge John Price. He was a one-armed judge, and he would say, "How can a one-armed judge be even-handed with justice?" But his wife Julie worked at the School of the Blind for a long time, so we have had that Kiwanis connection for visually impaired for a long time. So again, thanks for joining us, Ashley. Thanks for all the work you're doing, and we hope this momentum of working together continues.
Yes, us too. Thank you.
Great, certainly. So we are going to turn it over to our esteemed guests and our esteemed MC, I guess, for Mr. Bruce Schumacher. Bruce is going to introduce today's speaker, Mr. Randy Mobley, Commissioner of the International Baseball League.
Thanks, Eric. My honor to introduce Randy Mobley today. We've been so fortunate to have him as our league president for going on. Well, he's been league president for 31 years. We've been a member of the International League not quite that long. But Randy's background is he went to Otterbein College in Westerville, Ohio, where he played baseball. Went on to Ohio State to get his master's degree in athletic administration. At that point in time, his qualifications met the attention of a couple of baseball legends in subsequent years. George Sisler Jr. hired him to an entry-level position with the Columbus Clippers. And then in the fall of 1985, Randy left the Clippers to go work for another baseball legend, Harold Cooper, who was the International League president. Well, about, 4 or 5 years later, Harold retired, the International League clubs voted Randy to fill the position, which he's had ever since. Randy and his wife Judy have 2 sons, 4 grandchildren, and I understand a 5th one on the way. This has been a tough year for a lot of us in a lot of ways. In addition to COVID, the Major League Baseball has imposed an entirely new structure on the minor leagues, and it's an adjustment for Indianapolis Indians. It's a major adjustment for Randy Mobley, as the International League will, as it was currently constituted or previously constituted, will cease to exist. We will now be known as the AAA East and be administered directly by the major leagues. But Randy has been an enormous help as we've dealt with all these Major League Baseball issues, knowing that the days of the International League office were probably numbered. But he soldiered on because that's just the kind of person he is. But without me saying any more, I think it's time for you to hear from him. Please welcome Randy Mobley.
Thank you, Bruce. And thank you everyone for having me today. Happy opening day to the Major League season today. I see a Cincinnati Reds hat here. So the Major League season is underway and the minor league season will commence right about a month later, a little bit later than normal, but as we all continue to adjust, that's the one of the 2021 adjustments by minor league baseball. It's great to be able to talk some baseball in the midst of an exciting NCAA basketball tournament. I congratulate Indianapolis and Greater Central Indiana for the way things have been conducted for those of us who are not in your immediate area. It's certainly been a joy to be able to get back to some sense of normalcy, even though it looks a little different on television. It still feels great when you're sitting at home in your easy chair watching what's going on. Before the meeting started, I heard some conversation about Hinkle Fieldhouse, and just a few years ago, I had the great pleasure of being hosted at a game at Hinkle by Max Schumacher and one of your dedicated Kiwanians and Graham Honecker, and had just a delightful evening there. So I have had a single experience, but it could not have been any better. This whole process of me visiting with you began over a year ago. Actually, Taylor had reached out and we had committed to doing this last March or April. I don't know exactly when it was, but then as things changed, we decided it best to put things on hold for a while. And as Bruce alluded to, this last 12 months in the world of minor league baseball has been like none other, with the pandemic only being a portion of what has made it like none other. It's a very different world for us in minor league baseball these days. And as Taylor had reached back out to me here in the last 6 weeks or so, I wanted to make sure that she was aware and that she still thought that it would be applicable for me to speak to the group, because things are so very, very different. So if you are open to hearing a little bit about how the sausage is made or has been made the last year, and what's going on behind the curtain, as in the Wizard of Oz, then I'll take you on that little bit of a journey here, and I'll hope not to get into too much of the gory detail, as at least in my perspective is gory detail. It may not be the case for everyone. But as Bruce mentioned, I appear to you in a very unique role. I can almost guarantee you won't have another speaker that comes to you as the league president or commissioner, but has no teams underneath him. As I sit here today, I still have the title of International League president, but all of the teams that I have previously worked with now report and work with Major League Baseball directly. So I am a league president without any teams to speak of, even though the International League itself continues to be a legal entity. And I continue down a path that has us closing down the league, disposing of assets of the league. One of the very unique challenges that we face is, along with this, Major League Baseball has, at least for now, eliminated the existing names of most all of the leagues in minor league baseball. So I want to get into a little bit of the history just to further set the stage before I do take you behind the curtain a little bit. So if you're on board with that, I'll go the Paul Harvey route with the rest of the story here. First, some history. Minor league baseball, as we have known it, came into existence in 1901. So been around well over 100 years. The International League itself was formed in 1884. So even before the formal entity of minor league baseball was in place, the International League was in place. It is older than even the American League and the major leagues. So the National League is the only professional baseball league older than the International League. So that gives you some idea of the history that we're talking about here. Minor league baseball itself was an association of leagues. And there were 16 leagues within the minor league baseball structure, one of those leagues being the International League, where we had 14 teams. So you've got this bigger minor league baseball structure of leagues, and each of those leagues then has their teams. So the documents or the relationships that bind each other, for decades, this minor league association was bound with Major League Baseball by a document called the Professional Baseball Agreement. So this binds the Minor League Association and Major League Baseball and defined the responsibilities and roles of each. Now, if we take that down a notch, then each league obviously has its own rules, regulations, constitution, bylaws that its teams are going to live by in this relationship with the other teams within the league. And then finally, the teams themselves have a relationship with a major league affiliate, just like the Indians have with the Pittsburgh Pirates these days. That's referred to as a player development contract. So each of the teams have relationships with the major league club. Each of the leagues have relationships with each other, which our office over the years has been responsible for making sure each of our teams are living up to their obligations, not only within the team setting, with the league setting rather, but within that relationship with Major League Baseball as well. So in our office, we would have one set of documents that deal with that league relationship with Major League Baseball, a set of documents that deal the league relationship with other leagues, and then also the team relationships within our league itself. So that's a little bit of the nitty-gritty background about this big structure of minor league baseball down to the league relationship there. So this document that binds the minor leagues with the major leagues is something that usually goes for a term of 8 to 15 years and has for the past 100 years. Last September 30th, that document expired. And up until that point in time, it was always assumed that, okay, the two sides get together and you have a negotiation and you hash out things that you want to change from the previous document. And you go on your merry way with a few tweaks to what you've been doing. Major League Baseball came into those discussions that started about 2 years ago with a totally different plan. Their first approach was that of these 160 minor league teams, we want to eliminate roughly 40 of them. Just simply do away with their affiliation with Major League Baseball. Now, these teams are independently owned and, depending on classification, would have a value of somewhere probably in the $5 million range at the low end to a minimum of $20 to $30 million at the higher end. And these are just going to poof, go away. So you can imagine the consternation that existed when this was first introduced a couple of years ago. So needless to say, the conversations got off to a very rocky start. And it even slowed the amount of discussion that took place between the minor leagues and the major leagues for some time. So we go through the 2019 calendar year, not much happening on that front, and we get into early 2020. These conversations, again, stressful with the major leagues. And now we get to February of last year. We all know what starts to unfold at that point in time. Now everything is COVID discussion and what's going to happen with the Major League Baseball season, what's going to happen with the minor league season, and this conversation relative to the relationship between Major League and minor leagues gets pushed to the back burner a bit. So things are being slow played there, but now we get into March the 12th, everything baseball related now is going to shut down and be delayed. They cancel the rest of spring training, and it's not long after that that it's announced that the regular season will be delayed at both the major league level and the minor league level. And meanwhile, we know we've got this situation with the major leagues. This agreement needs to be addressed, but Major League Baseball is now entirely focused on what's going to happen with their players and what's going to happen with their season. Just to give you some idea of the perspective that we were operating with when things got started, in our office, we would oversee the playing schedule for our teams. Well, if you say that you're going to postpone, if you're going to delay the start of your season, you begin lopping off some of those games. Well, as Bruce Schumacher would attest to, everybody within a league wants to have the same number of home games. When you lose home games, you lose revenue. You lose opportunities to generate revenue. So if you were going to eliminate a week of the season, that would, some teams are going to be at home, some teams are going to be on the road, but you are going to unevenly affect teams within the league when you begin lopping off certain weeks of your schedule. So in our office, we began playing with schedules where you would rework portions of it. If we hypothetically started on this date, here's what we would do. If we hypothetically started on this date, here's what we would do. To show you just how naive we were, and you all may have some of your own stories, the first reworked schedule that we had starting for the 2020 season, we thought maybe there was a chance that we could get started by Memorial Day in late May. Well, you look back on that, and as we went along, and you realized how silly that was to even think that we had a chance at that. But when we were back there in March and even early April, still not knowing the impact that COVID was going to have, we remained optimistic. And then as we went on, we would continue to lop off schedule and rework schedule until finally we got to June the 30th, and it was announced that there would be no minor league baseball season at all in 2020. Now, when this hit there in the springtime, this could not have been worse and again, Bruce could certainly attest to this directly, this could not have been a worse timing for our teams, because by that time you have already invested in all of your preseason purchasing, all of your acquisitions of everything related to your operation. So you have now expended hundreds of thousands of dollars in preparations for your season that now is not going to take place. You've already gone through your entire sales period. You've accepted season ticket monies. You've sold groups. You've sold your sponsorships. You've sold your advertising. You've got all of this in hand. Now the teams are beginning to decide, how do we handle this? Do we talk about refunds? Do we talk about trying to roll it forward? Do we look for other ways for make goods on all of this? And I mentioned this just as we, during this conversation, try to develop some overall perspective and how wide-reaching this effect is going to be, is that all of those revenues that those teams received last year were either refunded or, if they were successful in doing so, rolled forward and applied to this coming season, which is great because the teams would have had to retain opportunity to retain some of that revenue, but at the same time, that eliminates all of that inventory for 2020 then being sold that you're using as make goods. So the impact of this is going to continue with the teams for at least the 2021 season and probably well into 2022. Some of our clubs were fortunate in receiving relief from their landlords. Many of them were fortunate to be involved in some of the PPP money and retaining staff members. I've got to use this as an opportunity as well. Your Indianapolis Indians were such stalwarts in this situation. Decisions made by the board of directors and Max Schumacher and Bruce Schumacher, they retained every individual from their ball club during this entire period. There were no layoffs, no furloughs, which is very unique in our minor league baseball world. I have shared this with Bruce, with some members of the Indians board. It certainly made me proud to be associated with that organization. It's just so characteristic of the way they do business that they certainly took care of their people, as they always do during this tough time. So to again provide some perspective as we now combine these two issues, the issue of no season because of COVID, and this period of time we're now in where our relationship with Major League Baseball, the agreement has expired. So we don't know what things are going to look like for 2021 in dealing with COVID or with Major League Baseball. So we are doubly impacted in our world with that. One of the perspectives that's important to keep in mind within this big minor league baseball organization is that organization consists of teams as widespread as, and I don't just mean geographically, but from size, from the financial aspects of the business, from Indianapolis to Missoula, Montana, and everywhere in between. Teams that may draw 700,000 people to teams that may draw 125,000 people are all within this minor league baseball organization. So as the minor league baseball organization itself is going to negotiate with Major League Baseball, you've got quite a variety of perspectives. What's important in Missoula, Montana may not be worth having a conversation about in Indianapolis, Indiana, in the big picture. And yet this minor league baseball association is charged with representing all of those in this conversation with Major League Baseball. So needless to say, we had some internal challenges of our own in dealing with Major League Baseball as they want to create an entirely new paradigm in this relationship. They now want to do away with that professional baseball agreement that I mentioned that binds the two. They want to do away with the player development contract that binds the major league and minor league teams. And they want to create a new world in which it's viewed as a franchisor, franchisee type relationship, whereby the individual teams would serve as a franchisee to the franchisor, Major League Baseball, totally eliminating what we have known as minor league baseball, eliminating the administrative office for minor league baseball, which consisted of about 50 people, eliminating the 16 league offices, of which the International League was one of those, eliminating the 16 league presidents. Major League Baseball wants to control everything from the commissioner's offices and work directly with the teams. So the end result of that is our teams had a decision to make. Now remember, no baseball revenues. Our teams are wilting on the vine. They don't know what's ahead. The last time they had ticket revenue was early September of 2019. Major League Baseball has presented this plan where we want to change everything. And if you would like to sign up with this for this relationship, which we will dictate to you, you need to do so by this date. If you choose not to sign this, then we'll go to someone else with your affiliation, your relationship, and you can try to play independent baseball where you come up with your own players, or you can use your facility for amateur athletics. So our teams were faced with a very difficult decision on one hand, but on the other hand, there was really no decision for them to make. If they wanted to stay affiliated with the major leagues in any way, they needed to sign on the dotted line, which all of the teams in the former International League have done, and virtually all teams that were in minor league baseball previously had. But at the same time, what it turned out to be 42 teams at lower classifications were totally eliminated from the affiliated relationship with Major League Baseball. And when I say affiliated relationship, I mean those teams that receive players from a major league organization. When they improve, they go to the next level within that hierarchy of baseball. The independent league teams, you're simply signing independent players that have no relationship with Major League Baseball whatsoever. So our teams are now entering into this new world order for 2021 under this new relationship, which has given Major League Baseball much more control over their operations. Now, one of the positive things that I will say about this is I don't think that, well, let me backtrack. As I indicated earlier, a look behind the curtain or how the sausage is made. When someone goes out to an Indianapolis Indians game or any of the other 120 minor league teams, I don't think they're going to be exposed to much of what has happened. You know, they won't know that the Indianapolis Indians now have a much greater financial obligation to Major League Baseball than they previously did. And that's the same way with all of the other teams. But when someone goes out to an Indians game, they're still going to have that same family-friendly atmosphere, that same wonderful victory field, and that same experience that they've had. but it's going to be much more challenging, much more difficult for the teams to operate from a business perspective in this new world order. Now, Major League Baseball has done this with the idea that it is a more modern, more efficient way for them to operate. First, by eliminating the 40 teams, they claim they don't need to put as many players into the big end of the player development funnel, where you would start out at the very lowest levels and then let the players gradually increase in level as their skills improved. They claim that with their analytics and ability to now evaluate players, that they can do a better job in choosing which players should go into the professional baseball system. So that's part of their efficiency theory. That time will tell whether that plays out or not. So if you eliminate 40 teams, you're going to eliminate leagues, which they have done. What they have done is tried to keep baseball at the amateur level in those 40 teams by being members of leagues that will host players that would hope to be drafted into the professional baseball system, or places where there's simply prospect leagues, as well as any other type of amateur leagues. So they have tried to provide some form of baseball in those communities. And it's easy to understand why, because over time, just as has been done in Victory Field, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and in Victory Field's case, millions of dollars are put back into those facilities. So if you are in a city like Danville, Virginia, that would have an Appalachian League team at the very low level, and you might draw 100,000 people a year, the example that I have been told is used is they had to make a decision last year as to whether to buy in town, whether to buy a new ambulance for one that was going out of business, or to upgrade the locker room facility at their ballpark. So you've got those type of scenarios playing out in these communities where Major League Baseball left. So it was creating all sorts of issues in those communities. So they have tried to make sure that there is some form of baseball that still remains there. Now, there's no better team, as I've said, to be able to address this and handle this as far as their positioning than the Indianapolis Indians. Indianapolis is one of the few teams, I'll say, out of 120, it would be probably a single digit or low two-digit percentage of clubs that have no debt. Indianapolis Indians have been run as a business since day one when Max Schumacher came on board, and very well positioned to be able to handle this. You've got a stable front office staff, folks that have been there for a long time. That's not the case everywhere. And again, as I mentioned earlier, what has been done with these employees during this pandemic is just an example of the type of things that keep people around. So they are facing these new challenges with seasoned veterans at what they do. We've got other places. There's another one of the International League teams that just within the last 2 weeks has had their general manager and one of their assistant general managers go to other professional sports. We are a month away from opening day, and this team is without a general manager and without an assistant general manager. So that's the other extreme to what you would see there in Indianapolis. Major League Baseball has put a heading on this whole approach and called it One Baseball. One of Commissioner Rob Manfred's goals when he took office, and he said this, but it's just now coming to light, is Major League Baseball wants to have involvement in baseball from the very youngest age to the major leagues. They have increased their involvement with Little League Baseball, both with on the male side and female side with the equivalent of softball. They have enhanced their relationship with colleges. The amateur draft is being changed this summer from June to July. Now they've taken over the minor leagues, and they have always been Major League Baseball. So you can see this one baseball approach coming to light with this entire plan. Another area that they have begun a couple of years ago with some of the independent league teams is using them to experiment with different rules. Now, we in formal minor league baseball had also been involved in some of that. A couple of years ago, you all may recall, there were clocks put into the AAA ballparks as we tried to increase the pace of the game. That was something that we all adopted very favorably. Thought that was, quote unquote, an experiment that was going to improve the game to the fan experience. We also have some concerns about some of the things that Major League Baseball wanted to do and did do that more affect the game and the integrity of the game itself. Some of you who may follow the minor league game very closely will know about players that come down on rehabilitation assignments from Major League Baseball. When they come down, they're coming back from an injury. About 10 years ago, we had a Major League pitcher came down, and the baseball being used at the Major League level, different from the ball at the minor league level. At that point in time, when he came down on his Major League rehabilitation assignment, he said, "I'm not going to pitch unless I can use the Major League Baseball." Well, we were resistant to that initially. Whoever heard of one person using one type of ball in a game and somebody else using another type? But we had gotten to the point in recent years now, due to Major League edict, when a Major League pitcher came down on a rehabilitation assignment, he got to use one baseball, and when he left the game, you put in other baseballs that the rest of the minor league players use. So it's concerning that that starts to affect the integrity of what we're seeing out there. So as Major League Baseball takes control, those things like the clock example I use that don't affect the integrity of playing the game itself, but benefit the fan and the game itself by moving it along, entirely supportive of. But Major League Baseball now is going to implement a number of experimental rules throughout minor league baseball in this 2021 season that will have varying degrees of effect. And just to give you some idea of what some of those are, and you may have seen this, at the AAA level, we're going to increase the size of the bases. Now that I don't think is going to have a huge effect. They talk about a safety factor there, making that less likely that you have collisions at first base. And it also actually shortens the distance between the bases by about 6 inches. There have been some that speculated that that'll make the stolen base more prominent because you've reduced that by 6 inches. I'm not sure I'm buying that, but we'll see how much effect that 6 inches has. But here's one that you follow the game at any level. At the AA level, there are going to be restrictions on where players have to be positioned within the defense. The word shift has come into the Major League Baseball vernacular very prominently in recent years. Now you have to have, at the AA level, you're going to have 4 players on the infield. You can't put one of your players in shallow, or your infielders in shallow right field like you could have the last few years. So that's going to go on at the AA level. At the Class A level, they're going to be doing some experiments with pitchers stepping off of the pitching rubber and throwing to bases for pickoff moves. At the lowest classification level, they're going to be using electronic umpiring, where they have electronic strike zones set up. There will still be an actual umpire, but he'll receive a buzz on whether to call it a strike or a ball, based on what's in this electronic strike zone. So they are jumping in with both feet to experimentation within formal minor league baseball, which on one hand is a good thing. On the other hand, if we start to affect the integrity of the game that people are paying money to see when they come out to Victory Field and those 119 other teams, it's a little bit concerning when at the same time you give up that control, and Major League Baseball now has that control. So we'll see what happens with all of that in the coming months and in the coming years. That, my friends, is the down and the dirty and the behind the scenes. And I hope I haven't gotten too much in the weeds, but that's the state of things right now. I think it's a rosy picture if you're getting ready to go out in early May to a game at Victory Field. If you're sitting in Bruce Schumacher's office or Randy Lewandowski's office, your challenges have gotten a little bit greater during the past year. So with that, thank you very much for having me, and I appreciate the opportunity. And Eric, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Randy. I thought I had a lot on my plate as Kiwanis president. So, Bruce, do you have any questions for Randy?
I don't, but I see we have at least a couple from the group.
Okay, no, certainly. So, through the NCAA tournament, a couple of our members have had the opportunity to work with some sports management students hoping to make their careers in sports. Randy, what one or two things can they do best to prepare themselves for beginning that career and excelling in the industry?
Being willing to commit. The sports industry is one of those. Again, may not be unlike those that you all are currently working in or have worked in your careers. It's the furthest thing from a 9-to-5 or an 8-to-5 job. You've got to be willing, if you're going to go work for Bruce Schumacher, you got to be willing to be there for a 10-day homestand, from 8 o'clock in the morning until an hour after the game's over. And if that fits with what you have in mind, great. You're not going to have your holidays. You're going to miss some birthdays. You've got to be committed. Again, speaking from somebody who's been in it for 40 years, even with this unrecognizable ending that I'm having to the end of this career, I wouldn't trade it for the world. The opportunity to go work in a sports setting on a daily basis, nothing like it.
No, I appreciate that. When I was a chef in New York, my dad would come visit me for board meetings he had in Manhattan, and he would get the most sadistic smile on his face when I would talk about my hours. It was 11 a.m. to 1 a.m., hour commute each way, and he would just get this look on his face. He's like, yeah, you want to be a business owner. So it's kind of the same thing. A lot of our members have that commitment to their lines of work. So again, Randy, thanks so much for joining us today. This is possibly our last meeting with Taylor on the phone today. So just please a round of applause and positive thoughts to Miss Taylor for all her hard work the last 9 years, for leaving this tremendous roadmap of responsibilities that Miss Kelly is going to take over starting Monday. Taylor's email is shut down as of Monday. So we've got her cell phone. No, I'm just kidding. But no, Taylor, happy and healthy success this spring. Kelly, welcome aboard. Randy, a small donation will be made in your name to Trinity Haven, long-term housing for LGBTQ youth, the first of its kind in Indianapolis. We will reconnect in 2 weeks for Carmel Mayor Brainerd, and everybody have a happy Easter weekend. Congratulations to Ashley and Bips for their grant, and meeting is adjourned.